Hello again, and welcome to another Gulliver vlog. This is number 9. Can't believe it's number 9. We're almost into double figures, which is kind of good. I don't know. We apologise for the fact that it's a little bit dark today. It's dark outside. It's absolutely chucking it with the rain at the moment, and sort of reflects the day we've been having as well, because we've had a lot of difficult things to try and figure out this week and today. We'll go into more detail on that in a moment. Are you going to start with the horse?
Yes, I suppose so. So we thought we'd continue to show you the progress with each of the puppets. So the horse this week, I have, it probably doesn't look like I've done a lot actually since last week, but I have. I had to smooth out the shape quite a lot, so I was getting rid of some of the sort of weird lumps and bumps and making it look as horse-like as possible. The next stage is looking at the mane and the forelock and the tail in the end as well. And that's been really difficult. And what's stuck on currently is not permanent. And to be perfectly honest, I'm not 100% convinced by it. I like the text fabric, which we use in all of our shows. If you've seen our productions, you'll recognise it. And I like the sense of it, and I really, it helps when you put the eyelids on and things to then put some eyelashes. I think that really helps. But I'm not convinced by the colours. It needs more work. So I'll continue to sort of try and work that out next week. I feel like Noel and I might end up in a disagreement over the colour of it. Because when I first started, I started with brown paper, but he wasn't sure about that because that's the hair for the other things. I still feel like brown paper might be the way to go, but we'll see.
We might come full circle. That is often the case. Wouldn't be the first time that I've said, I'm not sure about that. And then in the end I've gone, you were absolutely right all along.
That doesn't always happen though, to be fair. I'm often wrong, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. But that's where we're at with the horse.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we've also been having difficulties with our Yahoo.
Yeah.
Although we have also made some progress.
Yeah. I mean, we've made a lot of progress in terms of, if you remember the one we showed last week. Was it last week? So it was very much just a frame. We had just kind of placeholder, just the shape for the head, and the rest of the body was not filled out at all. So I've tried to build this out a little bit this week and tried to sort of get more of a solid shape to it. I've added some tubes here to the arms because it means that they can be operated from the elbow, whereas when they were just rope, obviously you had no way of controlling the whole arm. So it means you've got a little bit of movement there. We've thickened out, I don't know whether you can see the legs, but we'll show you the whole thing at the end. Anyway, we thickened the legs out and started to do some other little details like covering the front with twine and stuff here so that it looks cohesive as a whole thing. However, in doing all the work on the head, and obviously we've done a lot there to build out the face, we've kind of come to the agreement that maybe the head is a little bit too big. Basically, it's just that it doesn't look quite right yet. So, in talking about the horse and in talking about this, it's worth pointing out that sometimes...
At least once for every show.
Yeah, at least once, if not multiple
Mm.
times. You're going to have one of those days or one of those weeks where it feels like nothing you're doing is
quite working.
Right. Yeah. And the funny thing is that actually it's often when you get to those details, because you can make the shape of the horse's head or you can make the outline of the body and you can create the basic skeleton. But it's when you start doing things like adding eyes or adding fine details, the things that really make the character and can make a huge difference. You put a large set of eyes on and a small set of eyes, it changes the way that you feel about the whole puppet, really. And it becomes really difficult. And you feel like progress has slowed down a lot then, because...
I think it's just that you feel like you're creating more problems than solutions at one point. So at the moment we feel like we've got all these questions that we can't quite answer because we're not quite sure exactly what it is that's not right. So we know that there's something not right about the horse's hair. We're not quite sure what it is yet. We know that there's something not quite right about the Yahoo as a whole, but we're not quite sure exactly what it is. As Noel said, we think the head is too big. Pretty sure that's the case. It doesn't feel right in proportion with the rest of the body. But we also talked about the fact that we feel like we might have overworked it even, that we might have been better off with a simpler shape that we had last week.
Which is also a possibility. Sometimes you end up cutting something back and ending up with something simpler than where you've gone. The important thing is that with experience and having made a few shows, and I'm sure it's the same for anybody who creates or writes or draws or builds or does anything like that, you're going to have some of those days. I felt today like I couldn't do anything right. Like, everything I was trying was just like, no, that's not it. And I'm sure if you're, even when you're sketching something, you can get to that same point where it just doesn't work. It just doesn't look right. But fortunately, with experience also comes a familiarity with it. I mean, I don't know that you necessarily find it any easier, but you certainly find it easier to deal with, because I think you're better at going, okay, I might have to step away from that, or it's just one of those days.
And you know what it is, I think, because you've had it so many times before. You know what it is. You know that it's not because you're hopeless at what you do or that it's never going to work. It's just that you are at a stage that is tricky and you need to work through it, and you'll get there in the end.
I think it's really important though to recognise that, because, and I don't know why anybody, if anybody is watching this and is a maker or is a creator and is starting out on something like that, I think it's worth knowing that everybody has those days. It's not because you're failing at what you're doing.
No.
It's because it's kind of part of the process, and sometimes you just have to
bang your head against the wall.
Get over it.
But nonetheless, we do, even though we're just sort of trying to be honest with you all really, and say that it's not always easy, and we don't always get where we want to get to quickly. It often takes quite a lot of banging your head against a wall. Really.
And I think maybe it would be easy to watch these videos and just show you the progress and just be going, and we did this and we did this and we did this, but we kind of want to be as honest as we can about the hard stuff and the not so great stuff as well as the good stuff. However,
other things we have done this week. I filled out the, you remember our little monkey prototype puppet. So I've papier-mâché'd his little head, which I think is a nice shape. It's the first layer, so it needs a little bit of refinement. It needs sanding back here and there and putting the hair back on, which makes a big difference, because he's got none of that lovely personality yet. But I'll put that back on at some point and then sort out his body. But
I think it's a lovely shape though.
Sweet little shape.
Yeah, I think he's really cute, and it makes me excited to put it back together.
And then the Struldbrug, again, made a bit more progress with him. Oh, sorry, the monkey's falling off the table. So head, obviously you won't see much of a change. There isn't much of a change. I've just papier-mâché'd, made it neat at the back, and I put some little crinkles in at the sides of the eyes. I felt like it needed a bit more there. But then I also made a gnarly hand. So this is the hand. And then the two together, I think, work quite nicely.
Yeah.
And we'll show you properly at the end. The idea with the Struldbrug, it was Noel's brilliant brainwave, and I think it's going to work really nicely, is that we'll put a hood over him that will probably come far over the front of his head at the beginning, over the red spot. And then he would be able to, with this hand, hopefully then sort of remove the hood, and then we'd have this reveal, which we think would be quite nice, because I think the gnarly hand will be revealed through part of that kind of hooded cloaky thing.
And if he's sort of relatively tall and the rest of the body is quite wraith-like, I think it will be, kind of spooky.
Yeah, so we think that's a really, I'm pleased with that idea, well done. So we'll try that out later this week. Yeah. There we are.
So that is about it for today. We did just want to mention though, if you haven't already listened to them, the other things that we've been working on because obviously of lockdown. We did a couple of audio dramas. So we did a version of our Casting the Runes, which is an M.R. James ghost story. That's very much for adults really. And we also did Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, which is more family friendly.
If you've already listened and downloaded, by the way, thank you so much. We've had so many people download and leave us lovely messages and all that sort of thing. So thank you if you have already. And if you haven't, then please do give them a listen. But that's it, I think, for now. Yeah,
what's next for you? What are you going to work on next?
Next, I think I'm going to carry on with my monkey, put some hair on. I'm going to have to figure out the hair for the horse, though.
And I think I'm going to take a break from the Yahoo for maybe one day at least.
Yeah.
Try and do something else.
To one side.
Come back to it. Thanks very much for watching, and as always, hopefully we'll see you next time. Thank you.